This is Revelation 20, part 5. So far, we have looked at the 1,000 years, the binding of Satan, and now I want to look at the amillennial view of the loosening of Satan for a little season. Revelation 20, verse 3 tells us that Satan would be shut up in the bottomless pit till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed for a little season. Verse 7 tells us when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan was loosed out of his prison. Verse 8, and he goes out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle. It is interesting to note that the word for after used in Revelation 20 verse 3 is the Greek word meta, which in Strong's Concordance is explained as a primary preposition often used adverbially, properly denoting accompaniment amid, modified variously according to the case. So from this we can understand that meta is not merely restricted to mean after something has occurred, but may also mean accompaniment amid. That is to say, occurring during something. In Eric Hagelin's book Conquest of the Bloody Emperor, endnotes chapter 20 and note 6, he adds, of its nearly 500 appearances in the New Testament, meta is only translated as after 100 times. The editors of the Complete Biblical Library explain, the root meaning of meta is mid or midst. According to Vine, in the middle or midst is usually translated by mesos, that would be Strong's 3189, a different declension of the same root, and withal, meaning at the same time, is usually translated by hammer, Strong's 258. The expository dictionary midst, withal, and then he says, Grecian poets used the word to describe any impersonal association of people as well as something held with, meaning between, the hands. Separate to this series, I discussed the Greek word meta in my series called The Sign of Jonah, and part 3 in particular, and I think it would be helpful if you view that part. Once in the scriptures, it is said that Christ was to rise after 3 days, and this actually meant accompanying or amid the 3 days and nights Christ would rise. You see, Christ did not rise the 4th day, that is, after 3 days. Christ arose the 3rd day, and the Bible states that over and over again. Christ arose amid or during the 3 days and 3 nights. I'm not going to go into the meaning of the sign of Jonah here and now because you can view my separate series regarding this. The point is that when we come to Revelation 20, there is reasonable grounds to understand the loosening of Satan after the 1,000 years to be a loosening that accompanies the 1,000 years. In other words, it can be viewed as occurring amidst or during that same time, running parallel with it. If this interpretation is correct, and I am saying if, then it becomes relatively easy to pinpoint the meaning of the little season, because a little season has already been referred to elsewhere in the book of Revelation. Revelation 12, verse 12, woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. In verse 14, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. Well, look at that. In Revelation 20, we read of a little season. In Revelation 12, it is but a short time. And that time is spoken of in Revelation 12, verse 14, as a time and times and half a time. The little season, the time, times and half a time in Revelation 12 is the 40 and 2 months in Revelation 11 verse 2. It is the 1,203 score days in Revelation 11 verse 3. And it is the 40 and 2 months in Revelation 13 verse 5. Putting this together, the little season of Revelation 20 does appear to fit in quite well with the short time of Revelation 12. And this is the times, and half a time in Daniel and the Revelation. And this is the same as the 42 months. And it is the 1,260 prophetic day year period where, according to this view of the prophecy, Satan was to be loosed to wreak havoc upon the earth. And this period, of course, ran parallel with the church age, or as it may be, the symbolic millennial period. This 1,260 year period was terrible in every sense, and I have covered off this several times throughout this entire Revelation series. The papal Roman anti-Christian system came to dominate the entire European political, military, economic and religious situation, and tens of millions of Protestants were put to death. The 10 kingdoms, the nations of the earth during this time, were deceived, and all dissenters, insofar as they could be found, were rounded up, rooted up, tortured, butchered and put to death. With this, we can see, in my opinion, a possible interpretation of the meaning of the loosening of Satan seen in the rise of papal Rome and the deception of the nations that have upheld her. And of course, we must also remember during this time, the word of God had been taken from the hands of the people, God's people, and they were worn out to the point of almost total eradication. You will also recall that under the fifth trumpet in Revelation chapter 9, a great anti-Christian power was loosed from the bottomless pit. In Revelation 9 verse 1, we read of this star that fell from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit, and he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, and the air was darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And no doubt you will recall that in that part we saw that two great anti-Christian systems arose or were loosed from the bottomless pit in this same 7th century AD period, and those two great anti-Christian systems were the papacy and Islam. And so once again, this does seem to fit in quite well with what is stated in Revelation chapter 20. This is the view taken by Robert Carangola in his book, The Present Reign of Jesus Christ. He says, all John is saying is that accompanying the 1,000 years, Satan would be allowed a little season of testing. This was fulfilled during his 1,260 years, which we have examined already. Robert Carangola was the first person that I know of that has stated this position, and to me it makes a lot of sense. However, I'm still not fully persuaded, but it is very interesting. So now I'm going to deal with an obstacle in connection with understanding this loosening of Satan for a little season being fulfilled in the coming forth of the papacy and also the Islamic woe, which both had a period of 1,260 years of dominance. Obviously, the papacy being the main thing in view in the prophecy, and it had its effect in the former Western Roman Empire. It had a European setting, whereas the Islamic woe was found in the Byzantine Empire, the former territory of the Eastern Roman Empire. Now, you need to bear in mind that what I'm about to say is from an historicist amillennial point of view. Let's think about this. The amillennial view presents the following general concepts in relation to Revelation 20. Firstly, Satan is bound, he's limited or restricted by Jesus Christ, and as a result, the gospel has been able to go forth to all the nations. Next, the 1,000 years is symbolic of God's eternal kingdom. The saints have been ruling and reigning with Christ throughout the last 2,000 years. Now, I'm going to point out that in subsequent parts, I am going to closely look at this aspect of ruling and reigning in detail, but for now, we are considering the amillennial symbolic view of things. Now, during this time, in the Greek meta, meaning amid this time, this little season, Satan is loosed, and this is the 1,260-year period of the Daniel and Revelation prophecy. And concerning the consequences of this loosening, which runs concurrent with the 1,000 years, and which is also the 1,260-year period of the prophecy, we are specifically told in Revelation chapter 20, verses 8 and 9, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And they went up on the breadth of the earth, and compassed the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven, and devoured them. So the issue is this: where is this aspect of the prophecy, Revelation 20, verses 8 and 9, where is this fulfilled during the 1,260-year period of papal dominance in Europe, or that of Islamic dominance in the East? Of course, this was a terrible time in history, and I have previously covered this aspect of things in considerable detail. But where is this particular aspect of the prophecy fulfilled? I don't know of any fulfillment related to this, and I believe it to be yet future, and hence why, while the idea of the 1,260-year period being the little season of Revelation 20 is very interesting, it does not line up with the rest of the prophecy of what actually transpired during this time. You will need to be looking at this image to understand what I'm about to say. In Revelation chapter 11 and in the Preterism series found on my YouTube channel, I demonstrated that the first two periods shown here produced clear fulfillments of the 1,260-year period, and this was very interesting and remarkable. I also showed a third period which expired in 2016, but which does not appear to have produced anything meaningful except the Brexit referendum vote, which has become a nothing burger. Britain is still bound to Europe in every way and even wants to fight a European war currently, and they desire to have their troops on the ground in Ukraine to fight the Russians. Also, the current monarch in waiting, King Charles III, has recently made it clear of his desire to reverse the Brexit and rejoin the EU again formally and not just practically as it is at the present time. Be that as it may, the point I am making here is that this prophetic period of 1,260 years has been and gone. It's played its part, during which, according to the amillennial view, Satan was loosed for a little season. However, none of the events recorded in Revelation 28 and 9 have come to pass, and these are yet future. So while the view of the 1,260-year prophecy being the little season of Revelation 20 does have definite appeal, it simply doesn't fit in with the rest of what is stated in the same prophecy concerning that which the devil would bring about during this same time. But rather, it looks very much like what is being accomplished by the enemy right now. As I wrap up this part, I think that you can see that while I like the view of the little season of Revelation 20 being fulfilled in the 1,260-year prophecy of Daniel, the book of Daniel and Revelation, I don't think that this is what is in view in Revelation 20. Accordingly, the matter is either still yet future, a future binding and loosening of Satan, or perhaps it is being played out before us right now. Time will tell, and with that I'm going to end part 5 here.